Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to you for joining us today. Let me start off by saying that teen vaping is a problem. It's a problem that our society needs to address. Those who try to get kids hooked on nicotine should be ashamed of themselves. Studies have shown that the use of e-cigarettes can easily transition to marijuana and other drugs, especially among these younger users. My concern here is that the federal government has said that it wants to be tough on tobacco. And in saying that, it's issued a bunch of regulations for legal approval, only then to sit on those applications for legal products in the U.S., produced by U.S. companies, while turning a blind eye to illegal Chinese imports. Small businesses selling products are left with little to no guidance as to what's legal and what's illicit. And this is bad, and it's led to more teen vaping. The FDA is publicly committed to clearing the backlog of pending product applications by June 30th of this year. Many of these applications have been pending for several years, even though the deadline set by statute is 180 days. June 30th is in less than 18 days. I wonder, I question, but I question whether they can get that done by the June 30th deadline. I hope they can. But it makes me wonder why it's taken this long. Look, if we're going to establish a Byzantine labyrinth of federal regulations to make it more difficult to do this stuff, then for heaven's sakes, at least make the regime work. The worst thing you can do is set those up so as to choke out U.S. producers who are trying to comply with the law, and then open the floodgates so that the illegal Chinese products can move in and be sold unabated. So I wonder about this backlog, and I think the backlog is a significant problem. Now, between 2019 and 2020, there was a 1,000% increase in high school students' use of disposable e-cigarettes. That's a very significant jump, and most of these e-cigarettes are illegal flavored e-cigarettes from China aimed at children. China's sales of e-cigarettes into the U.S. market generate an estimated $3.5 billion annually. And yet, despite all of this, despite the 1,000% increase in teen usage of these illegal e-cigarettes, we've seen little to no civil enforcement action taken by the Consumer Protection Branch of the Department of Justice against these large Chinese importers. Mr. Rao, I'd like to know why. Why is that?
Senator, we take very seriously the vast, widespread prevalence of the products that you've described, and we have been working with our law enforcement partners, including the U.S. Marshals Service, on looking at seizures of these products. There was a seizure.
Hey, how many enforcement actions have you brought?
Senator, we've brought multiple enforcement actions, civil injunctive enforcement actions, and again, we're also looking at the use of criminal tools as well as other authorities, including the PACT Act.
Okay, and some of those authorities that the department has access to, or that the U.S. government has access to, are civil, and others are criminal. So I have to ask the question. I'll ask it to you, since no one from ATF is here. Why is it that that ATF is not bringing more criminal enforcement actions against the large Chinese importers? I mean, are they too busy revoking the licenses of federal firearms licensees based on paperwork violations? So much so that they've chosen to ignore those who are selling illegal Chinese e-cigarettes to minors?
Senator, we're working closely with the ATF on the use of the PACT Act. We are considering all available options under that statute, and we are, we're committed to working with them to try to make additional headway in this area.
Okay, can you grasp my concern here, which is that when we set up this very large net, a net, you might call it a dam, a barrier to entry that affects U.S. companies trying to comply with the law. And then you subject them to a lengthy licensing process. Then they have to wait for years while getting their products licensed. Then you have Chinese manufacturers not making any effort to comply with that law, not even making an effort to apply for approval, when those are flooding the market and the U.S. manufacturers trying to comply with the law get nowhere, can you understand why that's a problem?
Senator, this is an extremely complex and rapidly evolving area, and it is challenging at a number of levels. And again, that's why we are eager to continue the work with our law enforcement partners to try to address this going forward.
Okay. Well, I hope they'll deal with it and by, among other things, bring in enforcement actions, but also I hope that the folks at FDA can clear the backlog. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator DeLeese. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing and for your longstanding commitment to